A very warm welcome to the second session of the Mediation Summer School being conducted by Nivaran, an initiative of the mediators of the Supreme Court of India. Yesterday, you were told about the historical perspective of the dispute resolution and the evolution and development of various legal systems and how mediation was prevalent even in ancient times, though known by different names and has been mentioned in ancient scriptures. In today's session, we shall focus more on mediation as a means of dispute resolution system and shall try to throw some light on the concept of mediation, the definition of mediation, the process of mediation, the differences between mediation, conciliation, arbitration, and litigation, and also as to why mediation should be a preferred mode of resolution of disputes as compared to other methods of adversarial dispute resolution. Now, mediation is a voluntary, party-centered and structured negotiation process where a neutral third party, that is the mediator, assists the contesting parties in amicably resolving their disputes. What is important in mediation is that the parties retain the right to decide for themselves whether to settle the disputes, how to settle their disputes, and on what terms to settle their disputes. A mediator facilitates and encourages communication and negotiation between the parties, but the parties always retain the control over the outcome of the dispute. While this has been the traditional role of a mediator, a new school of thought is now emerging as to the role of a mediator. As the Honorable Chief Justice of India had also pointed out in his inaugural address, the role of the mediator should now be proactive instead of merely being passive, especially in cases where the competing parties have an unequal bargaining power. Now, mediation is voluntary, and the parties decide for themselves whether to settle their disputes and on what terms to settle the disputes. The right of self-determination is an essential element of mediation, and the settlement is created by the parties themselves. The benefit of such self-determination is that the terms of resolution then become acceptable to all the parties who remain in a win-win situation and have the satisfaction that they have themselves agreed to this settlement as compared to a determination or an imposition of a decision in an adversarial litigation where one party wins and the other loses. The goal of mediation is always to find a mutually acceptable solution by the parties to their disputes, which adequately and legitimately satisfies the needs, desires, and interests of the parties. Thus, mediation is a process which opens up communication, encourages parties to participate, helps them identify facts and issues, focuses them on their long-term interests, get them to be realistic about their case and its prospects, encourages them to come up with options for settlement, and helps them to those options to yield an agreement that both parties see as fair and proper to end their disputes. During this process, the mediator moves and constantly nudges the parties from the extreme ends of disputing spectrum to a common ground of settlement. Mediation is therefore an effective, efficient, speedy, convenient, and less expensive process to resolve a dispute to the satisfaction of the parties with dignity, mutual respect, and civility. Now, as far as the process is concerned, while mediation process is informal, which means that it is not governed by the rules of evidence or formal rules of procedure or even strict application of laws to resolve the disputes, it should not be confused to be a casual or an extemporaneous process. The mediation process is a structured and formalized process with clearly identifiable stages. Nevertheless, there is a degree of flexibility in following these stages. sorry. From the standpoint of a mediator, the process of mediation, broadly involves the following stages: introducing the parties to the concept of mediation, encouraging the parties to explain the factual background of the dispute, and assisting them to spell out the relevant information necessary for resolving the disputes, assisting the parties in understanding the problem, and to enable them to see the problem even from the other party's perspective as well, as this helps them for a deeper understanding of the interests and needs of the parties. It also assists the parties to identify the real problem and to then encourage and let parties create their own options for solving the problem. And let them also, it permits them to evaluate the various options that may have been generated and to let them decide for themselves as to which of the options or the hybrid or a combination of such options would be the best to resolve their disputes. And finally, to let them draw the terms of settlement or even choose not to settle the disputes through mediation. Now, mediation is a private process and it is not open to be viewed by the public unlike what we see in courts, where parties who are not concerned with your dispute are also watching your bickerings. Mediation is a confidential process in nature, wherein the statements made by each party before each other or by any one or the other party before the mediator in a caucus are all confidential and cannot be disclosed in any court proceedings. It is for this reason that statements made by parties or any information furnished by them during the mediation proceedings are inadmissible in evidence, and any documents produced or prepared during mediation are non-discoverable in legal proceedings. In short, no record of what transpired during the mediation is either prepared or maintained or shared with anybody, even not with the court in cases where it is a court annexed mediation. The mediator can also not be called upon to testify in any proceedings or to disclose to a court as to what transpired during the mediation proceedings. Though by now you would have had a fair idea of the uniqueness of the concept of mediation and can make your guesses as to how it would be different from conciliation or arbitration or litigation, the fine nuances and differences shall be shortly shared with you by our guest speaker during his talk. Once he shares the distinctions between the different modes of resolution of disputes between the parties, I am sure that by the end of the session, you will yourself appreciate as to why mediation ought to be a preferred mode of resolution of disputes by the parties. Now, before introducing our guest speaker, a few requests and rules. Kindly do not interrupt the speaker while he is delivering his talk, as you shall be given sufficient time at the end of the talk to raise your questions. For the time being, you can either type your question in the chat box or raise hands after the talk. And once you are asked to ask a question, please tell your name and whether you are a law student or an advocate. And it shall be our endeavor to try and answer as many questions as we can during the time available to us. Let me introduce you all to our guest speaker of the day, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain. Our guest speaker is a well-known personality in our fraternity of mediators. Dr. Jain is a member of the Delhi Higher Judicial Service and presently serving as a district and sessions judge of Delhi and also as a special CBI judge. With his experience as a judge for a long number of years, he is now a firm believer of the fact that mediation is the way forward for resolution of disputes, especially in countries like India, where the judicial dockets are huge and courts are overburdened, resulting in delays and or unsatisfactory resolution of disputes, which then gives rise to further appeals. He is a master trainer on mediation skills and techniques and has played an important role in imparting education in mediation to the legal fraternity and is a regular faculty who visits various state judicial academies and the National Judicial Academy. Dr. Jain has an enviable distinction of having conducted 12,000 mediations till date. So, who else can be a better person than him to tell us more about the mediation, the process, the concept? May I therefore now request Dr. Jain to elaborate more on the topics of today's discussion. Dr. Sudhir Jain, over to you.
Thank you, Shri Sandeep Narayanji, for giving my very kind introduction. I am just a student of the mediation. First, I would like to congratulate Nivaran, the mediators of Supreme Court of India, for organizing this very educative international virtual summer school on mediation 2021 for advocates and law students. I hope that this program would prove to be a milestone in spreading the message of mediation among the young advocates, young lawyers, and the students also. So, and again, I also would like to thanks to Shri Rakesh Kumar Khanna ji, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, and other office bearers of the Nivaran for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be the part of this evening as a resource person in this training program. I extend my heartiest thanks to all, and particularly Shri Rakesh Kumar Khanna ji and others. Today we will be discussing very important topic: what is mediation, what is mediation process, and how the mediation is different from conciliation, arbitration, and litigation or judicial process. Yesterday you must have learned about how historical perspective of the mediation, how the dispute resolution mechanism was in existence in our country, in our society and other part of the world, and how the dispute resolution mechanism now mature into the present dispute resolution mechanism is being in practice in different jurisdiction and throughout the world also. Today I will be focusing my topic and my talk on of this topic in primarily into three parts. We will try to understand what is mediation, what is mediation process, and how the mediation process can be divided into various functional stages of the mediation process. And thereafter, we will try to understand the difference between mediation, conciliation, arbitration, litigation, which I always would like to call a judicial process. Then we will talk about something about how the efficacy of the mediation in comparison to other adversarial dispute resolution mechanism system. So dear friends, I will be presenting a short PowerPoint presentation to make this topic more interesting and more understandable. Now, sir, this is visible on screen, sir?
Yes, it is, sir.
Sir, it is visible.
Yes.
Yesterday, you must have learned how the mediation was introduced in our legal system. It is because of the amendments carried out in the year 1999 and 2002. The Section 89 was reintroduced, which was repealed when the Arbitration Act 1940 was enacted. Section 89 provides that when there is a element of settlement in a dispute which is pending before the court, and the court formed the judicial opinion that there is element of settlement which can be referred for dispute resolution mechanism, which are arbitration, conciliation, mediation, judicial settlement, including lok adalat. And thereafter, friends, you must be knowing that the amendments which were carried out in the year 1999 and 2002 in the CPC, they were challenged before the Honorable Supreme Court in the very famous case Salem Advocate Bar Association versus Union of India. The Honorable Supreme Court has delivered two judgments in the year 2002 and 2005, and the constitutional validity of the Section 89 was upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court. So now we are having the parliamentary mandate for the mediation. There is the constitutional validity was upheld by the Supreme Court of India in Salem Advocate Bar Association. So we cannot escape from applying or implementing the dispute resolution mechanism in our justice delivery system, including mediation. Now we need to understand what is mediation. I will not be going to the historical perspective of the mediation and other. All of you are well aware, and yesterday you must have learned about these aspects. When a citizen of this country or a concerned party or litigant is having any dispute, he is having the two-way for dispute resolution or dispute adjudication. First is the judicial dispute resolution, which can be invoked before the courts and tribunal, and second, by virtue of Section 89, primarily alternative dispute resolution mechanism. When we talk about the judicial dispute resolution or adjudication, we can file suit, we can file petition, we can file complaints, we can file appeals, we can file revisions or review petition before the courts of different jurisdiction as per the subject matter of the dispute. But when it comes to the alternative dispute resolution, we are having the various mechanism where, as per the mandate of the Section 89, negotiation, although it is not the part of Section 89 specifically, but in conciliation, in mediation, judicial settlement, even in the Lok Adalat, the negotiation is an integral part of the all this process. So we can have conciliation, mediation, arbitration, judicial settlement, Lok Adalat. When, dear friends, Section 89 was introduced, at that time we were having the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. So we were having the fair idea about what is arbitration and the legal consequences and different legal aspect of arbitration as well as conciliation. And at that time, we were having the Legal Services Authority Act 1987, which was again amended in the year 2002 to talk about, to deal with the various aspects of the Lok Adalat and how the this legal aid mechanism is working in this country. But at that time, there were very little knowledge was available about the mediation as well as judicial settlement. I'm telling you, till today, we have not started practicing judicial settlement. Any settlement which is recorded before the court, it is not the judicial settlement. It is like a recording of compromise within the mandate of Order 23 of the Code of Civil Procedure 1908. Mediation was also unknown to our justice delivery system. For the first time in the Section 89, the word mediation was introduced. At that time, we were not having the knowledge what is the definition of mediation, how it can be done, what are the different components of the mediation, what kind of techniques which are likely to be, which are bound to be used when doing mediation, how the mediation is to be conducted. Various aspects they were not known to us. But in 2002, the mediation was introduced, it was made implemented and effective with effect from 1st of July 2002. But gradually and gradually we started to learn about the mediation. We have started to gather knowledge about the various aspects of the mediation. Now coming to the definition of the mediation. If I ask about the definition of mediation, a definition of mediation, you know, it is the basic of the entire mediation process and various functional stages of the mediation. Unless and until we are able to understand the definition of mediation in the right and proper perspective, we cannot understand the mediation process, or rather we may not be able to conduct the mediation. So dear friends, it is very important to understand the mediation in right perspective. As Mr. Sandeep Narayan in introductory remarks, he very well explained the some aspect of the definition, some part of the definition of the mediation. What is mediation? Mediation is nothing. It is a process like the judicial process, like in the criminal jurisprudence, in the civil jurisprudence, before the court, before the high court, before the on the Supreme Court. When we are filing a petition, we are filing a plaint or a criminal complaint. When we are invoking the jurisdiction of any of the court, we followed the definite process. So mediation is a structured process, very important. It is not a casual process. It is a very well defined structured process that we need to follow, that we will be discussing. It involves a third person. Who is that person? Impartial person, which is called as mediator, which is who is known as mediator. Now, what, dear friends, mediation is a structured process in which an impartial person, a mediator, what the mediator does, very important. I will be talking a little bit about the role of mediator in this talk to understand what he facilitates and how the role of the mediator is different from the role of an adjudicator. In mediation, the third neutral person, that is mediator, he facilitates. Very important part of the mediation process and the mediation, the entire mediation jurisprudence, that a mediator only facilitates. What he facilitates? The settlement of the dispute. He facilitates the parties in amicable resolution of the dispute, which is developed by the parties themselves. And in taking the parties towards the settlement, what the mediator facilitate? Basically, he facilitate the communication and negotiation between the contesting parties. And dear friends, remember, I am not using the word litigants. I am using the word parties. Because one thing you will remember in the mediation, although we are saying a case is referred for mediation, but in reality, in actuality, a case is never referred to mediation. Rather, the parties are referred to the mediator for mediation. That I will be coming when I will be discussing the role of mediator. So definition of the mediation is very simple but very important, and we need to understand mediation is a structured process in which a impartial person, who is that impartial person? A mediator. What the mediator does, he facilitates. What he facilitates? Amicable settlement between the parties, which is developed by themselves. And in this process, he actually facilitates communication and negotiation, including bargaining. Now, various components, although Mr. Narayan has talked about the various components, various attributes attached to the mediation process. And these attributes which are attached to the entire mediation process, which are coming out from the definition of the mediation, these attributes are making the mediation entirely different from litigation, judicial process, arbitration, conciliation, counseling, panchayat, more important, and the lok adalat also. First, the mediation process is impartial. Like any other process, mediation process is impartial. The impartial character of the mediation process can never be compromised either by the parties or by the mediator himself. Then the mediation process, very important part of the mediation is that it recognizes the right of self-determination. I will be coming to what does it mean. Then it is purely confidential. The confidential aspect of the mediation can never be compromised. It's a very qualitative process. What does it mean? The mediation process, mediation proceedings cannot be allowed by the parties to be abused. Nobody can abuse or misuse the mediation process. It's a facilitative process to bring the parties to settlement, but it can never be allowed to be misused. I can cite you many cases where the parties try to breach the confidentiality. They try to use the mediation process to know the confidential information or confidential facts of the cases of the other parties. Many where the mediation process was immediately stopped. Then it requires the competence of mediator. A mediator must be able to fulfill the reasonable expectation of the parties. He should be well trained. It required the exact recording of the settlement. Then I will be how the last phase of the mediation process, that is the recording of settlement. I will be talking a little bit more in details. And then it is very creative and flexible process. I can cite you hundreds of cases where the parties, they develop a settlement which is totally different from the outcome of the judicial process. I will be giving you one or two example depending upon the availability of the time also. What is impartiality? It is impartial. A mediator must be impartial, neutral, even-handed, and purely independent person. Mediator to avoid any partiality, prejudice, and most important, even the appearance of partiality and prejudice. It is not the actual partiality or prejudice, because sometime today time is not permitting me. Otherwise, I have noticed many mediators, they purport the selective facilitation of the mediation, the selective facilitation of the outcome of the mediation. That is very important. That's why the impartiality, the neutral character, impartial character of the mediator in the entire mediation process, even after the conclusion of the mediation process, is very important, significant, and relevant. Very important. I was talking about the mediation recognize the right of self-determination. What does it mean? The parties, they are liberty to choose their own terms and condition of the settlement, but within the four corner of the legality and validity. Because at present in this country, most of us, even 95% of the mediation is the court referred or court annexed mediation. So in the name of self-determination, we can never compromise the legality and validity of the terms and condition of the settlement. So what does it mean? You must be watching this in this image. The concerned parties, they are at the liberty to open the door of any of the room. It means any terms and condition uh, which is they agreed upon. It is a party-centered negotiation. Very important. The parties, they control the outcome of the entire mediation process. It is not the mediator. It is not the referral court. It is not the advocates of the concerned party. Rather, the parties, they are responsible for the outcome of the mediation. It is the parties to control the outcome. It is purely voluntary process. But with the this judgment in the AFCON judgment in the year 2010, we can divide the entire mediation process. The referral by the court may be voluntary, may not be voluntary. Then participation in the mediation process, negotiation, bargaining, it's required to be voluntary. But once the settlement is recorded and the settlement is accepted by the court, then it may not be voluntary. The parties cannot be allowed to withdraw. The confidentiality is very important. It is the essence of the mediation, the spirit of the mediation, the backbone of the mediation is the confidentiality. We can never compromise with the confidentiality. Confidentiality, the confidentiality of the facts, confidentiality maybe of the process also, but what the extent, the magnitude of the confidentiality which is required, it is as desired by the parties, to the extent, to the level as desired by the parties. I would like to say because I have seen most of the mediators and the speakers on the mediation, they are obsessed with the confidentiality. We cannot keep everything in the mediation which is disclosed or deliberated by the parties as confidential. Because if we want to facilitate bargaining and negotiation and ultimately settlement between the parties, then we need to exchange the information between the parties. But still, the confidentiality is the essence of mediation. It must be maintained during the mediation, even after the conclusion of the mediation proceedings. Like our Honorable Supreme Court in Motiram versus Ashok Kumar highlighted the relevance and importance of confidentiality in mediation. It's a quality of process. there should be diligent conduction of the process. A few days back, I was delivering a talk on the impasse management in the mediation process. Then I mentioned that most of the impasses, they are created by the mediator themselves. Parties are not responsible. Why? Because we fail to conduct the process diligently. Sometimes we compromise with the quality of the process. The mediation process must be qualitative. There should not be any desire for higher settlement rate or to force the parties to go for the settlement, because it is a voluntary process. We recognize the right of self determination. Then again, you should be competent as a mediator, because the reasonable expectation of the parties, what are the reasonable expectation? Ki they should be listened by the mediator. A mediator may be able to understand the backbone, the dispute, the background of the dispute, the underlying interest of the parties. And the settlement I have just mentioned, it must be exact. Recording of the settlement is must. And next, very important, is very creative and flexible. I will give you one example in a 1 or 2 minutes. It's that I have conducted mediation in this case about 14, 15 years back, but this case is still very close to my heart. What had happened is that a labor dispute was referred by the appropriate government to the labor court for adjudication. What had happened in that case? A workman was terminated after conduction of the domestic inquiry. He was terminated from the service, and then he raised the industrial dispute. That industrial dispute was referred to labor court. And what had happened, when the case was pending before the court, the workman had expired, and at his place, his wife, two sons, and the daughter, they were substituted. Had you been the adjudicator in this case, what you would like to decide? If the domestic inquiry was conducted as per law, then no restatement, no compensation, no damages, whatever it may be the legal entitlement, the workman or his legal representative, they might not be entitled to get their any relief from the court. But I was handling this case as a mediator. I was not adjudicator. I interacted with the parties. Then I came to know the daughter of the deceased workman was very good in study, but her mother, due to poor financial condition, was not able to provide her good education. The management was a well-reputed school of Delhi, a girls' school, very difficult to get admission. And ultimately, what was settled between the parties, that is the surviving legal heirs of the deceased workman and the management has agreed to provide free education up to 12 standard to the daughter of deceased workman without charging any fees or any other charges beside payment of certain compensation. So kindly see the creativity, flexibility in this type of settlement. Whether this type of settlement is possible in judicial process, I think no. If a if this type of verdict or judgment is delivered by any court, I think the most of you would like to prefer appeal before the appellate court. But a very creative solution could be possible because of the creativity and flexibility attached with the mediation process. Now, dear friends, mediation is not barred to further litigation. If you are not able to settle your case in litigation or arbitration, in mediation, then you can go for litigation and arbitration. Mediation is not what we as judges and what you as lawyers are doing in the court. It is entirely different. If the mediation is not successful, it is not waste of money or waste of time. Rather, in first attempt, we sown the seed of the settlement. I remember when I was posted as judge in charge of the Delhi Mediation Center at Rohini Court, I settled one matrimonial dispute in sixth attempt. So it is not a waste of time. It is not a further cost to the parties. Mediation is not weak and mediation is not risky. It is very suitable remedy, very effective, powerful remedy. And I'm telling you, a mediator is not less powerful in comparison of a presiding officer of any court. Now, dear friends, now we will try to understand how a case is flowing in court adjudication and mediation. Very important. You know, institution of the case and completion of pleadings, it is common in litigation as well as in mediation, because after AFCON judgment, the suitable stage for referring a case for mediation is after completion of pleadings and before framing of issues. So institution of case and mediation and pleadings, completion of pleadings, these are common. But how the case is flowing in a trial? First, trial, parties lead evidence, file claims, defense, arguments, lead evidence. Ultimately, there is a judicial verdict, and where one party is winning and another party is losing. I have hardly seen any judgment where both the parties are winning. A decree is passed in favor of plaintiff as well as defendant. Even there is a counterclaim raised by the defendant. In most of the litigation, it is a win and lose situation. But how the case is flowing in a mediation? The parties agree go for mediation, referral of the case by the concerned court, the mediator is selected, mediator conducted many mediation sessions, and ultimately parties settle for their dispute. And most important, here you will find, here is a judicial verdict, that is the judgment which can be given only in the point in controversy before the court. But here is the resolution of entire dispute. Suppose I am referring a petition under protection of women from domestic violence. Only that part can be decided by the court. If this case is referred for mediation, the entire gamut of dispute between the parties, like divorce by mutual consent, permanent alimony, maintenance, custody of the children, visitation right, quashing of FIR, other criminal case or civil cases, distribution of property, all these issues can be mediated, and ultimately there would be win-win situation for both the parties. It means neither party is losing. Out of the mediation, every party is bound to get something, which is not true in litigation or judicial process. Suppose if a case is not settled in the mediation, if impasse or deadlock is there, the parties can come back to the trial. I just mentioned, if the mediation fails, it is not a bar to further arbitration or litigation. Before start of the mediation process, I would like to mention you what is the role of mediator in entire mediation process. It is primarily a mediator plays two type of role, facilitative and evaluative. In the definition, when I was talking about the definition, I mentioned mediator facilitate. It means the primary role of the mediator is facilitative, not evaluative. What he facilitates? He facilitates the entire mediation process, that he gather the information, he settle the ground rules, he initiates the communication between the parties, he creates the option, he takes the parties to the settlement, he facilitates the negotiation, bargaining between the parties. And sometimes when there is a deadlock between the parties, then mediator assumes the role of evaluator. His function becomes evaluative. What in the capacity of evaluator, a mediator evaluates the case on facts and law. Dear friends, you will learn this evaluation in the latter part of this training program. But remember, a mediator is purely non-judgmental. He hardly gives any judgment on the facts and law. His primary duty is to assist the parties, not to tell how to settle and what to settle, but only to assist the parties, right? He controls the process. Parties may be responsible for the outcome of the mediation process, but the manager of the entire mediation process is the mediator. It is the mediator who actually controls the mediation process. And very, very important part of the mediator role, the mediator hardly propose any solution or give any suggestion. No solution, no suggestion. If you start to give suggestion or solution to the parties, you will be compromising your clout as a neutral person or as a impartial person. Now, what is the mediation process? We just talk about the definition of mediation, the various components of the mediation, and the role of mediator in entire mediation process. Out of this definition of mediation, the components of the mediation and the role of mediator, now we will try to understand what is mediation process. Dear friends, I will give you one example. A father and the son, they are fighting. They are having the dispute regarding the purchase of a motorbike. Why? Because son is studying in a school which is situated very far away from his place of residence, and every day he used to get late, and because of this his study is badly suffering. And what the father is concerning, what the father consider कि nowadays it is not to ride a bike on the roads, and he is having some financial constraint. So this is a dispute between the parties, father and son. If I ask from you whether father is right or son is right, some of you will say father is right, some of you say son is right. I'm not going into the details because tomorrow you will be learning more about the this your conflict, what is conflict management, conflict resolution, and most important, your perception. So now this is a dispute before you. Suppose if this dispute is referred to you as a mediator, if I ask the final outcome of your settlement without going into the details of the deliberation or negotiation between father and son, some of you may suggest, or you may resolve the dispute like this, that the son may get early so that he can reach the school well in time. The father may arrange a cab every day so that the son can reach at his school well in time. The son can be given training, proper training, how the bike can be drive on the roads nowadays. The father can purchase the motorbike in installment. He can purchase another vehicle. There can be a suitable alternate arrangement by sharing the vehicle by any other student or any other person who is every day who is going near to the place of the education of the son. There can be various many solutions to this problem. Now, how the mediation process can be divided into various stages. First, introduction. Second is gathering of information. The information may be journal information, may be confidential information. Then after introduction, after gathering of information, why we used to gather the information, there are two in purpose. First, we need to understand the problem, the background of the dispute, backbone of the dispute, and most important, the underlying interest of the parties. What was the background of the dispute between father and son? To purchase a motorbike. But underlying interest of the parties, for son, he wants to reach his school well within time so that his study should not be allowed to be suffer. What was the underlying interest of the father? That what he considered, it is not safe to drive motorbike nowadays on the rides, besides some having some financial constraint. So father and son, they were having different underlying interest. If we are gathered to information properly, only then we can understand what is the dispute, what is the background of the dispute between the parties, and what are their underlying interests. And then after understanding the background of the dispute and underlying interest, then we need to create option. I have given you many as 5 or 6 options for the settlement of dispute between father and son. And then we need to make, we need to evaluate each and every option. That is evaluating option. And after evaluation of each and every option, one option can be converted into the settlement, or there may not be any settlement. So dear friends, the mediation process. First, mediation, definition of mediation. Now, out of mediation, a definition of mediation, the mediation process can be divided into 4 5 parts. Introduction, I will be telling you what is introduction. Second part is very important, gathering of information. It may be confidential, maybe journal information. Why we gather the information? To understand the problem and to understand the underlying interest of the parties. Then we create option, evaluate option, and then we convert one option into the settlement if desired by the parties. Otherwise, there would not be any settlement. How this mediation process can be divided into 4 or 5 functional stages. Mr. Sandeep Narayan has mentioned few stages, but I will tell you the model which we are following in this country nowadays. Very good quotation. There is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. If you want to settle a dispute in a mediation, you have to follow the structured process. And how the process can be divided into different stages, you have to follow different stages one after another. There cannot be any escape route. First is introduction and joint session. Second important stage is joint session. Third is single session or caucus or individual session. Fourth is closing. What does it mean? There may be settlement or no settlement. What is introduction? What is opening statement? This is very important part of the mediation because it set the roadmap of the settlement. It set the roadmap of further mediation process. It prepared the background for the conduction of entire mediation process. What we used to do in the introduction? Very simple. First, we need to take care of proper sitting. Whether in the mediation room there is proper sitting or not, I'm telling you, friends, on the day of my mediation, I used to reach at least 10 or 15 minutes earlier before the arrival of the party to check whether everything is placed or not, well placed or not. Chairs are properly placed, table is there, whether AC is functioning or not, paper, pencil, pen, uh, call bell, everything is in placed or not, or in proper order. That I used to check. Then welcome the parties. Welcome parties doesn't mean that you are paying lot of regard. Just welcome the parties. You are welcome in the mediation room. It is not the courtroom. In the courtroom, we hardly welcome the parties. Then give your self introduction, your experience, your expertise. Like, I'm Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain. I'm a trained mediator. I'm doing mediation for last 20 days. I have conducted mediation in large number of cases. This is your brief introduction. Then ask the introduction of parties, councils, or if any other participant is there. Third party is present, so seek their introduction also. And then, very important, there should not be conflict of interest. If there is a conflict of interest, it will generate unequal bargaining, power imbalance of the parties. If there is a conflict of interest, you may be knowing some parties, you may be having a conflict of interest in the subject matter of the outcome of the mediation proceeding. If there is any, immediately disclose to the parties. In one case, the case was referred to me. I was knowing the one of the parties. This fact immediately I disclosed to the opposite party, and I asked, if you, Mr. Opposite Party, if you want, I can refer back this case to another mediator. But both the parties said sir, we do have full faith in your impartiality and your neutrality to kindly proceed with that mediation proceeding. What you are supposed to do in the opening statement, explain the concept and process, because parties or advocates may or may not be aware about the mediation process. Tell them the stages: joint session, single session, closing, because in the judicial process there is no single session. Tell the role of the facilitator that you are not a judge in their case. Your only role, primary role is to facilitate the mediation process, not to give any suggestion, solution, or decide the case on merits of the case. Because most of the parties, even nowadays, what the parties consider, even uh, we are doing mediation for last 15 days, what the party consider ki their cases transfer from one court to another court. Most of the parties, they consider the mediator is a judge, another judge in their case. But tell them he is not a judge, only you are the facilitator. Then role of the parties, very direct and active roles. Benefits, tell them one or two benefits. Personal empowerment, and I will be telling in the last how the personal empowerment is making the mediation entirely different from rest of the resolution mechanism. Then address the confidentiality. Tell them, Mr. Sandeep Narayan, talk about some aspect of the confidentiality in the opening remarks, but I have mentioned the mediation. In mediation, confidentiality, it may be requirement of law, like mediation and conciliation rule, which are in practice in different high courts now, enacted by different high courts. Every mediation and conciliation rule, civil rules or ADR rule, they are addressing the confidentiality. It is the essence of the mediation. It can never be compromised, particularly the confidentiality as desired by the parties, to the extent or magnitude as desired by the parties. Then very important, settle the ground rules. Why we settle the ground rules? To maintain proper decorum and discipline in the mediation process. Like ask the parties to address to the mediator, no interruption. Like in the beginning, Mr. Sandeep Narayan has settled few ground rules. There should not be any interruption when the resource person would be speaking, question and answer at the last part of the session. So these were the ground rules. So like in the every mediation, we settle the ground rules. Very respectful, polite, no, because no across the table, no argument, no inflammatory language, no defamatory language is to be used. And most important, which I never prefer in the mediation process, the use of mobile phone, either by the mediator or by the parties. Even these ground rules are equally applicable to the mediator also, not to the parties, but equally to the mediator. And then in the end, we used to ask the place, timing of the mediation, whether the mediator is taking note or jotting down certain points or not, no smoking, when the break is required. These are all administrative issues we used to address in the introduction part. So dear friends, one thing you would realize, the main actor of the introduction part of the mediation process is the mediator himself. The entire introduction parts, it should hardly take 3 to 5 minutes before completion. In introduction, there is hardly any role for the parties to play except to give their own introduction or introduction of the advocates or any third party accompanying the parties to the mediation. The main actor of the introduction part is the mediator himself. And I'm telling you, this is very vital, essential part of the mediation process. Many times the mediator, I have noticed, they used to skip the introduction part. No. To generate confidence, for trust building, to develop proper discipline and decorum in the entire mediation process, introduction part is required. There are various objectives of the introduction, like establish your neutrality, suppose I'm saying that Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain is a neutral person, nobody would like to believe unless and until my conduct is showing that I'm a neutral or impartial person. So your neutral language, body language, your proper eye contact, these are the part whereby you can establish your neutrality. By proper introduction, you assume the control over the mediation process, and you also develop very relaxing atmosphere. You know, when I was in mediation center in T Cesare court, I trained my staff in communication skill, how to interact with the parties, how to interact with the litigant, so that a very conducive, congenial atmosphere can be generated in the entire mediation hall or in the mediation room also, which is totally different from the adversarial atmosphere in the courtroom. And this introduction part is very important to develop trust with the parties, a rapid building, trust building. I'm telling you, I can speak on rapid building and trust building for hours together, how it is important in the mediation. Now, second is the functional state is the joint session. I said when I was talking about the mediation process, first was introduction. I covered the introduction. Second was gathering of information, journal information and confidential information, and why we gather the information to understand the background of the dispute and to know the underlying interest of the parties. This part of the mediation process can be done in joint session as well as in single session. We gather the information both in joint session as well as in individual session. We understand the background of the dispute and underlying interest of the parties both in joint session and single session. And we also create, then we also talk about the creation of option and evaluating the option. This can also be done in joint session and single session. Some of the dispute can be settled at the stage of joint session, then we need not to go for individual or caucus or separate session. Like simple suit for recovery, the complaint under section 138, most of the time they settle in the joint session. But where the dispute is more complicated, like family dispute, matrimonial dispute, property dispute, commercial dispute, then we need to go for single session or individual session or caucus session. Why joint session? It is the meeting of the parties facilitated by the mediator for direct communication. In joint session, mediator allow the parties to communicate with each other. It's a very productive. It sets the ground for resolution. If we are able to do good joint session with the parties, then the settlement may not be very far away from the mediator. It gives an opportunity to explore the solution, because this is the time we are gathering the information, we are understanding the dispute between the parties, we are understanding the underlying interest of the parties. But take care, in the introduction I talk about the setting of certain ground rules. If the ground rules are not properly settled or enforced, then the fight between the parties, quarrel between the parties can harm the mediation process, right? For that, we need to settle the ground rules in the introduction part. Why it is benefit for the parties? Why? You know, joint session, like in introduction, the main actor was the mediator. But in the joint session, the main actors are the parties themselves. Joint session belong to the parties. In my humble opinion, in my humble assessment, 90 more than 90% part of the joint session must be given to the parties. It is opportunities for the parties sorry. It is for the opportunities for the parties to highlight the merits or defense of dispute in their language. You know, the pleadings which are preferred or which are filed before the court, no pleading, no writ petition, no complaint is free from coloring. You know, when we used to file any pleading or any application before the court, it is some coloring, some false introduction of facts is always done. but the joint session gives an opportunity to the parties to tell their case or defense to the mediator in their own language, and also to understand the case of the property opposite party in the language of opposite party. The parties they feel being heard. It's a good time for the parties कि they are the part of the dispute resolution. This is the time when you can convey to the parties कि they are integral part of dispute resolution. It is party center negotiation. It is party center mediation. So this joint session is important for parties. Simultaneously, the joint session is also equally important for mediator. How it is important? Because it is the time for the mediator to gather the information, and very important to organize the information. Gathering of information is important, but what is equally important? To organize the information. Dear friends, when some party is approaching to you for filing a writ petition before the Supreme Court or before the Supreme Court or High Court, whatever may be, you gather the information. Then what you used to do, you organize the information given by the party so that a well articulated petition or pleadings can be prepared. And then what the mediator used to do, he exchanged the information between the parties in a very simple manner, in a simple language. The mediator understand the dispute, understand the facts or issues between the parties. He tried to understand the possibility of settlement, obstacles in the settlement, and then he allows the evaluation of the dispute. After gathering of the information, it is the time for the mediator to evaluate the dispute. Unless and until the mediator is able to understand the dispute, how we can facilitate the communication and negotiation between the parties. In mediation, in the joint session, important is for the mediator listen properly, ask very few questions, encourage the parties to give information. Because sometimes the parties they are very reluctant to give information. So various kind of techniques we use like questioning, active listening, body language, empathy with neutrality to encourage the parties to uh, give or deliver more and more information, facilitate communication, jot down the relevant information. The mediation may be completed in one sitting or may not be. So it is very important to jot down the relevant points or issues on a paper which can be destroyed at the end of the mediation proceeding. Maintain your neutrality, develop very conducive and congenial atmosphere. Generally, the techniques which we have used, the active listening, because of the active listening, we are able to gather more and more information to understand the background of the dispute and underlying interest of the parties. Management of outburst. I'm not saying the prevention of outburst, but management of outburst of the parties during joint session. When the parties they are sitting facing each other before the mediator on a table, I think this may be the first opportunity when the parties they are facing each other after eruption of the dispute between them. They are bound to explode. But this is the time for the mediator to manage outburst, control, not prevent. क्योंकि जब तक आउटबर्स्ट नहीं होगा मन का लावा बाहर नहीं निकलेगा. We cannot exhale our feelings, emotion and anger. Empathy is very important, not the sympathy. It is what is important. Empathy, I understand you, but without agreement, without disagreement, but why? Understand you. Asking right questions, very important. Yeah, your ability, your capability to ask question is very important. The way you are asking the question. For example, suppose in a matrimonial dispute, you are asking, are you married? Yes, I am married. How many children you are having? I am having 3 children, 2 children. But if you ask question like this, how many children you are having? Sir, 2 children. Then you are asking, are you married? See, at the end of this question, what would be the fate of the mediator? The information would be the same, but the way you are asking the question, it's very important. And your body language, you know, the body language To understand the body language is very important part of the mediation process. Sometimes by appropriate body language, by understanding the body language, we gather the information which is not disclosed by the parties, right? But you will be learning. And third is individual session. This is very important, sensitive part of the complicated mediation, very delicate part of the mediation. It belongs to both mediator as well as to the parties. In individual, it is arranged after joint session. You may conduct single session before the joint session, but preferably you should conduct joint session first and then go for single session. It is the session with single party. It is optional, not mandatory. Sometimes disputes are settled in joint session also. It is not a ritual which is to be performed in every mediation. This is the time when parties interact with the mediator in confidence. What are the objects of single session? To gather confidential information. I want to take divorce. Why? Because I want to go abroad for better employment opportunity. This information I do not want to disclose before my spouse because it may affect negotiation. So this is the confidential information which can be given by either of the parties in a single session to the mediator. In single session, we understand the dispute more deeply and realistically, because in the joint session, parties may give true information, may not give true or correct information. It is the time to explore the hidden agendas of the parties. Allow the parties to vent, and very important, this is the time for anger management, emotional management part of the mediation. I have just mentioned before you that the parties are referred for mediation, not the case is referred for mediation. We need to control, we need to understand, we need to counter the emotion and anger of the parties. And this is the time for anger and emotional management. This is the time where the options are generated, offer and counter offers between the parties, they are exchanged, and we also find the areas of flexibility. Suppose a case for recovery of 10,000 is referred to you as a mediator. In the joint session, what the plaintiff has asked, sir, I want rupees 10,000 plus interest plus cost of litigation. But the defendant would be saying, sir, I am not ready to pay anything. I don't want to give anything. So what is the difference? 10,000 plus cost of litigation plus interest on one side and zero amount on one side. But if you are conduct the single session smartly, you can bring down the plaintiff from rupees 10,000 to rupees 8,000, and you can move the defendant upwards from 0 to rupees 2 3,000. So initially the difference was around 13 or 14 difference, which in the single session, because of the flexibility in the approach of the parties, this difference can be reduced from 10 to 15,000 to 7 to 6,000. And the techniques to facilitate negotiation, these two important techniques are there: brainstorming and real testing. For I'm not going into the details. The real testing is based on your logical thinking, and brainstorming is based on your lateral thinking. But all these techniques are used to create more and more options for settlement. By brainstorming, by real testing, we generate more and more option for settlement, and then after evaluation, one of the settlement option can be converted into the potential settlement. In the single session, there can be sub-session when we break the parties and the advocate of the party. We can have joint session with both the parties excluding the advocates. We can have the session with the advocates of the parties, allowing this removing the parties, or the advocate of one party and the another party we can have this type of single session or joint session. These are called as subsession. Session with the parties having common interest, or session either with the parties or advocates individually. Parties or advocate, it means the same advocate and parties. And these are the subsession. These are very, very important in resolving the matrimonial dispute. Now coming to the closing. Closing may, I said, maybe settlement, may not be settlement. If there is settlement, settlement is the last phase of mediation, because your all hard work in the mediation, it would culminate into the settlement. The recording of settlement is very important. The terms and condition of the settlement, they are required to be reduced into the writing last phase, because your settlement, it define, it state, it prescribe the future relationship between the parties. Like in a matrimonial case, the parties, they have agreed to go for divorce by mutual consent. Then the settlement would tell when they will be filing their first motion, second motion, when they will be moving to the high court for quashing of FIR, how the custody of the child is to be decided, visitation right, how to give visitation right to the opposite spouse, how the stridhan or other amount maintenance or permanent alimony can be given to the wife. All these things are mentioned and addressed in the written agreement. It means your written agreement defines the future relationship between the parties. Very specific. What we need, very specific agreement. It should not be confusing. So your agreement should be very specific. It must state clearly who will do what, when, where, and how. But you know, one thing you must have realized, why is missing. Why cannot be part of the mediation settlement. Avoid confusing word, reasonable, as early as possible, as soon as possible, frequently, no. It should be very definite agreement. No scope of ambiguity, no scope of confusion. It should be realistic. It is executable as per law. Suppose two brothers, they are fighting for the division of property. What they settle, okay, we will not partition the common property, ancestral property, but we will open a gamble house. We will call the persons, different person to play gamble, and then we will divide the profit. So this is a settlement against the public policy. So this cannot be a settlement which can be executed as per the law, right? Your settlement, it must give minimum chance of future dispute. When I used to draft the mediation settlement, I was taking lot of care that there should not be any future dispute or litigation between the parties. Why we settled? Because to put an end to the past, present, and future litigation. Your settlement should not be another source of litigation. Very positive, balance. No blame assessment, no judgmental. We cannot put any blame on either of the parties for dispute. Right? And out of the settlement, every party must get something. It may not true in a judicial verdict, but in mediation settlement, each and every party must get something out of the settlement. Suppose the defendant has ready to pay the suit amount, but in installment. He cannot pay the entire suit amount in one shot, but he was allowed to pay in installment at less interest. So it means he get something out of the settlement. So from your settlement, every party must be benefited. Ultimately, your settlement must be clear, concise, very concrete settlement, dealing in each and every issue and complete settlement. No, not hurry in recording any settlement, but these 3 4 characteristics, they can never be compromised. Clear, concise, concrete, and complete. Suppose you are, a case is referred to Supreme Court Mediation Center. You recorded the settlement. If the settlement is not clear, concise, concrete, and complete, how the court can pass appropriate order, or how the court can dispose of the case pending before the bench on the basis of your settlement. So your settlement must be clear, concise, concrete, and complete. If there is no settlement, refer the case back to the referral court. If this is a court referred mediation, if it is a private mediation, then say thank you very much. Report only not settled without mentioning any reason, without blaming either of the parties. No responsibility, and in the settlement, even after conclusion of this mediation proceeding, after recording the settlement, we need to observe the confidentiality. And at the end of the settlement, closing remarks, thanks to the parties, to the council. Why? For their participation, whether case is settled or not settled. But as a mediator, we bound to thanks to the parties as well as their accompanying counsel for their participation and efforts for settlement. We can never say that this dispute could not be settlement either because of the petitioner or respondent. No, this kind of remarks, they are permissible at the end of this mediation proceeding. Now, dear friends, I talk about three things: mediation, mediation process, and how the mediation process can be divided into four functional stages. Now, the difference between judicial process, arbitration, and mediation, as well as conciliation. To understand, although you have mentioned the litigation, but I prefer to mention litigation as judicial process because litigation is very wide term. For this a simple problem for all of you, a exercise to demonstrate difference between the judicial process, or you can say arbitration as well on one side and mediation on another side. A father died leaving behind family properties to two sons. Both sons are sole surviving legal heirs. Fathers will divide it equally family properties. Will mention, very important, जो मैं I want to convey to all of you, will mention that the family portrait shall go to the father's favorite child. But who was the favorite child of the father? It was not mentioned in the will. Both the son brothers, they do not agree about who was the father's favorite child. Decide this problem, address this problem as an adjudicator or an arbitrator or as a mediator. What you will do uh, through judicial process as an adjudicator or as an arbitrator, and then as a resolutor like a mediator. In judicial process, what the adjudicator will do? Adjudicator first decide the issue in dispute. A issue is bound to be framed. Which son is the favorite child? Then both the son would be asked to lead evidence, give reasons why they consider themselves to be the favorite son of their deceased father. Then the adjudicator, after evaluating evidence, decide the case who is favorite child and accordingly would pass the decree. But whether this type of judgment will give the satisfaction to both the son, it will create further hostility between further acrimony between two brothers, because as an adjudicator you will be making your decision beating of favorite child and appraisal and comparison of parties evidence, and then giving your reasons who is the favorite child of the deceased father. But this is not the justice. This is not the real justice. But in mediation, as a mediator, what I will do, what Mr. Sandeep Narayan would do, or any other mediator would do, you will gather the information. You will facilitate the negotiation. You will facilitate the bargaining. You will generate many options. And then after evaluating option, you will convert one option into potential settlement, a settlement that would be satisfying both the brothers. That settlement would not be deciding who was the favorite child of his father. It will restore the relationship by they will maintain their future relationship. So how the mediation is different from judicial process and arbitration. Now it's more In a tabular form, judicial process is purely adjudicatory. Arbitration is quasi-judicial adjudicatory process, because in arbitration, although it is one part of the ADR mechanism, but it's not perfectly voluntary. It is based on claims, counterclaim, evidence, and ultimately reason award. Mediation is negotiatory. In judicial process and arbitration, procedure, decision, they are governed, restricted, and controlled by the statute. But in mediation, the procedure and settlement is not controlled or governed by or restricted by any statute. In arbitration and judicial process, decision is binding. In arbitration, the award is binding. But if in mediation, a settlement is binding if it is mutually accepted by the court and by the parties. In judicial process, purely adversarial, it is very relevant to know, in judicial process or in arbitration also, we concentrate, or we take into account only the past. We decide and determine the right and liabilities of the parties. But this mediation is purely collaborative, where we concentrate on present as well as on future, not only on the past. A agreement in the mediation is not confined to legal rights, entitlements, or liabilities. In mediation, I am not reading all. In mediation, there is direct communication between the parties, optimal direct communication between the parties. But in the judicial process and arbitration, no direct communication between the parties except at the time of recording of cross examination. This mediation is purely confidential, informal, non judicial, very flexible process. And the difference between mediation and conciliation, although, as Mr. Sandeep Narayan has just mentioned, our Honorable, my Lord Honorable, the Chief Justice has mentioned that now a mediator is required to be proactive, although it means His Lordship was pointing towards the use of more conciliation at the time of doing mediation. So, dear friends, for me, technically or in reality, there is no much difference between mediation and conciliation. But technically, or even in the Salem Bar Association, the Honorable Supreme Court has given the only difference is that in conciliation, the conciliator is more proactive. In conciliation, the conciliator gives suggestion and suggests some solution, which is not true in the case of mediator. So, sir, abhi we need to deliberate a lot the what kind of model we need to develop in this country, whether perfectly mediation or perfect conciliation, or a blend of mediation and conciliation. But I am telling you, in reality, most of the mediator, whatever the level they are functioning or they are working, we are following the blend model of mediation as well as conciliation. Now, friends, some difference between mediator and adjudicator, because we have talked about a lot about mediation and adjudication. Mediator is always facilitator, but adjudicator, he makes decision on the basis of pleadings and evidence. A mediator does not suggest or make any decision, but an adjudicator, after following the procedural and substantive law, he gives formal decision, right? In mediation, the parties, they are responsible for the settlement. It is not true in case of adjudicator. The settlement is binding, but in case of a dispute which is decided by adjudicator, the decision is always subject to appeal or any other revision or further remedies. So now in the last, because we will be running short of time, if difference between the other dispute, other adversarial resolution mechanism and mediation. Dear friends, uh, it doesn't mean that before incorporation of Section 89, there was not ADR mechanism was written in our statute book. Arbitration Act 1940 was there, Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, Code of Civil Procedure 1908, Section 18, Order 32A, Industrial Dispute Act 1947, Family Courts Act 1984, Hindu Marriage Act 1955, and one or two more statutory enactment like Legal Services Authority Act 1987. They were having the element of dispute resolution. At that time, when the adversarial system was in practice, we hardly talking about, we hardly used to discuss about the resolution. Our journey from dispute adjudication to dispute resolution, from confrontation to collaboration was not started at that time. But these element of ADR or other dispute resolution mechanism, they were not very systematic, they were not very organized, they hardly could produce the desired result. Hardly any government has settled the dispute within the mandate of Section 80 CPC outside the court. Hardly any family matter was referred outside the court as per the mandate of Order 32A. Arbitration Act was again repealed, substituted by Arbitration and Conciliation Act, and any settlement under our Industrial Dispute Act 1947, it was not up to the mark, it was not satisfying the requirement and uh, desire of the needy person or the affected parties. And although the arbitration, this Industrial Dispute Act 1947, it provides conciliation as well as arbitration also. I don't think any case was referred for arbitration under Industrial Dispute Act 1947. But because of the mediation, the parties, we have started our journey from authoritative dispute resolution to very democratic way of dispensation of justice. Our earlier dispute resolution, adversarial dispute adjudication, as well as your resolution, they were coupled with the authorities like execution, cost, direction, then giving command. There was no place for exchange of information. There was no place of restoration of communication between the parties. But this mediation is proved to be a very democratic way of dispensation of justice, where the parties, they were given first time a right to participate in decision making process. It is not true in case of arbitration, it is not true in case of conciliation, and more or less it is also not true in the case of lok adalat, where most of the cases are settled on the basis of persuasion, not on the detail, on the basis of underlying interest of the parties. So how the mediation is totally different from adversarial dispute resolution as well as adjudication mechanism which was available before the Section 89 of the CPC, which also mandate mediation as one of the dispute resolution mechanism. In the last, sir, we can compare the entire mediation process with Lord Ganeshi. His large year reflects the quality of the mediator active listening, that is listen more. X, it means impartiality, to cut off all the bonds of attachment. Small mouth, it means talk less, listen more. Allow the parties to speak. Blessings, take the parties to the spiritual path of settlement. To take the parties to the spiritual path of restoration of their relationship or amicable termination of their relationship. Large stomach, that is confidentiality. Digest all the information given by the parties unless and until disclosure is required or desired by the parties. Big head, think big. It means your logical thinking and lateral thinking, blend of logical thinking and lateral thinking. Small eyes, concentrate, listen carefully. Rope, impartiality, to pull down, to pull you to the highest level, one touch. You are again impartiality. So how, and the last, the bodhika, that is your settlement. To see the French in this limited 90 hours. I know I am rushing to the topic, I am speaking very fast. You may be able to understand, may not be able to understand. In last, to repeat, to summarize, I started with the definition of mediation. The definition of mediation, it is a structured process. It involves a neutral third it involves a neutral third party, that is mediator. What the mediator does, he facilitates. What he facilitate? He facilitate amicable settlement between the parties. A mediation is having various components like impartiality, confidentiality, right of self-determination. It is very creative and very flexible process. Then I talk about the role of mediator. Primarily, it is facilitative, but sometimes it becomes evaluative also. Then I talk about the mediation process. It is introduction, gathering of information. It may be confidential or general information. Why we gather information? To know the background of the dispute and to understand the underlying interest of the parties, which is followed by the creation of options. Then options are required to be evaluated, and one option can be converted into the potential settlement. And how this mediation process can be divided into four functional stages of the mediation process: introduction, joint session, single session, and closing. Introduction belongs to the mediator. Joint session and single session, they belongs to both mediator as well as to the parties. These are very important to gather information, to understand the information, to organize, to exchange the information, allow the parties to speak and to tell about their case in their own language. This is time for anger management, to find out the flexibility, to develop option, and to exchange the offer and counter offer between the parties, and also to gather the confidential information. And the last, closing, may be settled, may not be settled. And then I try to explain the difference between the judicial process, arbitration, and the mediation, and how the mediation is different from conciliation. And then a one or two line about the blend of mediation as well as conciliation process. So this is the my gist of my talk. So thank you very much for this. If you have any question, any doubt, if you want to add something, you are most welcome.
Yes, sir. Before we take a few questions, although we are running short of time, but before we take a few questions, a few clarifications. Number one, lot of people are asking for your PowerPoint presentation, and we would like to assure that we would share the PowerPoint presentation for to each of the
Definitely,
participants.
I can share with all of you. I
Yes,
always believe the knowledge is required to be shared with all.
yes, sir. Thank you very much.
And a
That's the
knowledge
first.
cannot be keep into the pocket. I can send you, Mr. Sandeep Narayan. You sent me yesterday your email address. So today I will email my PowerPoint presentation to you, sir.
Very well, sir. Thank you. We
But
will share it with
it
all the
is a short
participants.
version of my PowerPoint presentation because time was limited.
But I must say that there was a lot of appreciation of your PowerPoint presentation, as well as the way you have narrated and explained the whole concept of mediation. Before a formal Thanksgiving, I would, although we are running short of time, very few questions we will be able to take. Rest of you, may I request that you can put your questions in the chat box. We can request Dr. Jain whenever he finds time to reply to them. A few questions. First question from Miss Uma Suhas Savant. Can you please unmute yourself, ma'am? Are you there, ma'am? Okay, Mr. Anupam Kishore Prasad. Miss Tanmay Kulkarni.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please ask your question.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can
I
all.
am able to listen you.
Okay, sir. Sir, I would like to ask one question that if whether whether a mediator can act as an advocate after mediation, let's say in after mediation process, if there is no settlement and any of the parties to the mediation ask a mediator to become their advocate or to act as their advocate, whether a mediator can act as an advocate of any of the parties to the mediation.
Yes, yes, Madam Kulkarni, this is very debatable issue. In many,
Okay.
many training program, this question is usually asked by the advocate. In the beginning of my talk, I said a mediation process must be qualitative process. It means that there should not be any abuse or misuse of mediation process.
बंद करके यार चाहना मैं निकल रहा हूँ
Yes, even after conclusion of the mediation process, we are the perfect neutral person, we are the perfect impartial person. If after the conclusion of the mediation, if either of the parties approach you to become an advocate, generally as a part of ethics and code of conduct, we should not accept. I am saying should not. I am not saying he must not. But if that brief is not causing prejudice to the opposite party in the mediation, then there is no bar, and that you should not accept this his brief after conclusion of the mediation process. You can do it, but with lot of care and caution. It is always better to bring it to the notice of opposite party. You know, in one of the mediation center, one of the mediator, during the continuance of the mediation proceeding, he accepted brief of one of the parties and appeared before the court, and he was removed from the panel. Subsequently, he was removed from the panel of mediator. So, you know, madam, the main thing is that at that time today, we are trying to establish the credibility of the institution of mediation. So by any act of the mediator, there should not be any big question mark over the credibility of the institution of the mediation. Although there is no bar, you can accept the mediation, accept the brief of either of the parties after conclusion of the mediation, but it should be done with lot of care and caution and without causing any prejudice to the opposite party to the mediation.
Thanks a lot, sir. Sir, I have one more question. How many years of experience one should have before starting the mediation thing, like before starting acting as a mediator?
You know, madam, this after this second judgment in Salem Advocate Bar Association 2005, which was delivered by Honorable Mr. Justice Y.K. Sabharwal, this ADR and civil rules were accepted, and all the high courts were directed to frame their mediation and conciliation rules subject to modification depending upon their local requirement. So different high courts have prescribed different years of experience for advocates to become before becoming a mediator. Like Delhi High Court, it is 10 years, minimum practice of 10 years. In some high court it is 15 years, in some high court it is 5 years, but nowadays some private institute, they are also conducting training on concept and techniques of mediation, and for them there is no requirement of minimum number of years of practice. So madam, there is no universal rule regarding your eligibility criterion. It depends upon institution to institution and depends upon high court to high court. But as in when you get an opportunity to get 40 hours training on concept and techniques of mediation, don't miss that opportunity, because I used to call mediation training as personality development program also. It will change, the training in mediation will change your way of your life, the style of your life. I always divide the life process, lifestyle, and the life. In three things, I always differentiate life, life process, and lifestyle. So it will change all the three training in mediation. But no definite rule as on today. Tomorrow there may be.
Okay. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for such a wonderful session. Thank you.
We will take only one or two more questions. Mr. Mihir Govelkar.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for allowing me. Good evening, sir. My question, there are actually 4 questions. I leave it up to you which one to take up. The first one is, what governs the confidentiality of the mediation process? Is there any provision? Second is, since there is no record of the mediation process, if anything is referred to in any later litigation.
Mr.
How
Gowalkar, one by one.
Okay,
First,
sir.
I will answer for confidence. Then you can ask your remaining two questions. First, your confidentiality. I said it is maybe requirement of law. It may be requirement of agreement. If there is as on today, there is no specific statute which can govern the different aspect of mediation, including confidentiality. But if it is a private mediation, the confidentiality can be requirement of agreement between the parties. But mediation and conciliation rule, I just referred now, as enacted by the different high courts, in every rule, without any default, the confidentiality is addressed. It is required to be observed. Even in the mediation and conciliation rules which were enacted by the Bombay High Court, even the stenography of the mediation process is not permitted. So how much importance we have placed to the confidentiality? Even in Moti Ram case, the Honorable Supreme Court has attached lot of importance to the confidentiality. So sir, as on today, it is the requirement. It is mentioned in the mediation and conciliation rules. And tomorrow, if any statutory enactment is enacted by the Parliament, definitely there would be confidentiality attached with the mediation process. And second question, the recording of mediation proceedings. You know, I just mentioned, and your first question was regarding the confidentiality. So mediation proceedings are totally confidentiality. Neither parties nor mediator is obliged to disclose before any court or any other firm to disclose what was deliberated during the mediation proceedings or mediation process. Mr. Sandeep Narayan also mentioned that a mediator cannot be called as a witness. So sir, we hardly record any mediation proceeding. There is no formal recording like the recording in the court. We only, as a mediator, we only jot down the important points, the relevant point disclosed by the parties or any important information given by the parties, which at the end of the conclusion, at the end of the mediation or after the conclusion of the mediation, we used to destroy those notes, and those notes are also taken by the pencil, not by the pen also. So there is no formal recording of any mediation proceeding, and simultaneously there is no formal record is available regarding any mediation conducted anywhere or any part of this country. It is not permitted, sir.
My question was, if anything is referred to later on during any litigation, if the mediation fails, then I understand you said that it is not admissible. But since there is no record of it, how can that non-admissibility of that document or admission be taken care of?
What is admissible, what is referred to the court, it is ultimate settlement between the parties. Not even, even in the dispute, if the dispute is not settled, we do not allow any party to cross-examine the opposite party on the issue what was deliberated in the mediation process. So sir, there is only admissible is the referral order passed by the court and the terms and condition of the settlement recorded by the mediator if the dispute is settled. If the dispute is not settled, the failure report or the dispute is not settled. Except this, no any other thing is admissible in the court or cannot be allowed to be furnished or cannot be allowed to be produced before the court, from district court up to the, I think, up to the Honorable Supreme Court also.
Sir, is there any legal prohibition?
I think, Mr. Gowalkar, if we can give others a chance, because we are running short of time, I will take only two more questions, and then can I request all of you to kindly put your questions in the chat box along with your email IDs. We will try to answer them as soon as possible. So the next question goes to Keyur Jaju, and the last question will be Dr. Subhashish before we give the Thanksgiving and conclude the session. Keyur Jaju, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Please do that.
So much. Yes, sir. So my question,
I'm not able to listen your words. Kindly increase the volume.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes, now you are audible.
Am I audible, sir? Now.
Now you are audible.
Yes, sir. I'm Keyur Jaju. I'm a law student from Pune. So, sir, my question is, let's suppose there is an agreement and it has been referred to a court, and the court accepts the agreement between the parties. So, can we consider that agreement as a precedent or a binding for any future litigation or some say for some future cases? Is that the process?
No, it's a agreement is party specific agreement. It cannot form the precedent for the future also, because the parties by their agreement or reference by the court, they have settled their dispute on certain terms and condition, and on the basis of their terms and condition, the dispute was settled, or the case was disposed of. The disposal by the mediation can be a precedent for other case, because for other cases in the future. But what was decided, what was disposed of by the court on the basis of terms and condition of the agreement, in my humble opinion and in my humble assessment, it cannot be a precedent for the future for other cases also. It is
Okay,
party
thank you,
specific.
sir. Yeah.
Dr.
Thank
Subhashish,
you.
last question from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Narayan, sir. Good evening to all of you. Sir, myself is Dr. Subhashish Muhuri. I am a MCPC trained mediator, and I am presently the officer in charge of the Calcutta High Court Mediation Center. Good evening to all of you. Sir, my question to respected Jain sir is, sir, as per the MCPC rules, there is a provision that regarding the eligibility about who can become a mediator, that even a non-lawyer, an expert with some years of professional experience can even go through the training and become a mediator. And it has actually happened in some states of India, where non-lawyers, say engineers or company secretaries and psychologists, they have even gone through the MCPC training and become a mediator. Now, given these provisions, sir, my humble question is that, sir, these nitty-gritties of laws and if there is a settlement between the parties, then executability of the settlement and the nuances of the AFCON's judgment, all these, whether they can be interpreted by a non-lawyer or an expert, or whether their service can be availed alongside a lawyer or a judge mediator. I mean, whether a division bench can be formed to avail their service, or whether they can perform independently.
What I could understand from your question, that you want to know that apart from advocate and judicial officer and judges, any other person from a different field can be the mediator. Yes, sir. What you have mentioned in your question, try to divide into three parts. First, the referral of the case by the mediator, by the referral court, and second is the recording of settlement by the mediator, and then the execution of terms and condition of the settlement again by the referral court. For that, for first and third part, we need to be a judicial officer. For that, the knowledge of the law is mandatory, because a person without LLB cannot be a judicial officer or judge. But to become a mediator, it is not necessary that you should have legal knowledge. It is not mandatory. It may require, but it is not mandatory, because the function of the mediator is, after facilitating the entire mediation process, to record the terms and condition of the settlement. But to examine the legality and validity of whether those terms and conditions are executable, it is purely the function of the referral court. What a mediator has to do, nothing doing. A mediator may record illegal settlement also. He may record unexecutable settlement. Many times, as a referral judge, I received many settlements which could not be, although they were legal settlement, but they cannot be executed. They were not executable settlement. So I rejected those settlements. So to become a mediator, it is not a mandatory requirement that you should be a law degree holder, either in the shape of advocate, lawyer, or a judicial officer. Any engineer, doctor can be, or any expert, chartered accountant, officer of IAS officer, or any other person from a different field can be the mediator. Rather, we need those kind of mediators, those who can handle specific disputes, like a dispute between two commercial establishments. It can be well understood by a chartered accountant if he is a mediator, not me as an advocate or as a judge. Like suppose a dispute between two builders who can mediate between them efficiently and effectively, a person who is having the knowledge of the engineering. So it is not required. What is needed? We should be trained in the process, in the concept and techniques of mediation. We need to be accredited and certified mediator. We need to understand how the mediation process is to be conducted before taking a mediation, because if you are asking a untrained mediator, it is like that you are asking a butcher to conduct a bypass surgery. So your training as a mediator is required, your qualification as a mediator is required, but it is not required that you must be in all probabilities and in all circumstances you should be a law graduate. It is not mandatory, sir.
Thank you, sir, and my regards for answering me.
Sir, just one we conducted many training program in Jharkhand High Court for the participant, those who were neither advocate nor judicial officer. They were from different field like engineer, doctor, chartered accountant, IAS officer, IPS officer. This is they were connected to the many NGOs also. So sir, we need to spread the message of mediation to every walk of the society. Why to confine only to the law graduates, sir?
Right, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sudhir Jain, for a very insightful and lucid exposition on the topics of today's discussion. Your PowerPoint presentation was par excellence, as we can also see from the comments in the chat box. And the replies given to the queries raised by the participants also spoke of your practical hands-on experience in mediation. And as I said, conducting 12,000 mediations is not a small task at all. Thank you very much, Dr. Jain.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Narayan, for giving me and Shri Rakesh.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much.
And for
Thank you.
giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thanks to all, and good evening. Namaskar.
Thank you all the participants for taking a keen
Thanks a lot.
interest in today's topic. The questions raised by you were also an indicator by themselves that you were great and a participative group. We do expect that you keep your enthusiasm high during the remaining sessions of our summer school. Tomorrow may be a Sunday, but it is not a holiday. We have the next session starting 5 p.m. tomorrow, when you shall be given an overview of conflict and styles of conflict, as well as on conflict management, resolution, and transformation during mediation proceedings. So we look forward to meeting you all once again tomorrow. Goodbye and thank you.
Thank you.